Bergstrom from Comaquid, and I'm speaking in opposition to the $250,000 grant to be discussed this evening for the Village Green. I'm going to paraphrase, I think, a letter that Richard Largay sent to you because I thought it hit many of the major points. And that is that allowing this grant would send a strong message to all developers that they'll be rewarded for affordable housing projects, even if they ignore the town's stated goals and policies. Local comprehensive planning, including that for Barnstable Village, encourages the development of affordable housing by means of, one, requiring developers to obtain participation of village residents. That wasn't done in the case of the Village Green. And I've heard a number of comments this evening about roads and the need to incorporate participation of village residents. That didn't occur with the Village Green. Two, encouraging affordable housing in village centers with access to local transportation. That certainly doesn't reflect the Village Green. Three, encouraging small-scale affordable housing projects. Again, that's certainly not the Village Green. Four, building in a scale and density that's compatible with surrounding communities, not exceeding 2 stories in height. If you look at the picture of the Village Green, 3 stories, Soviet-style block housing, that certainly doesn't reflect the goals and objectives of local comprehensive plans. So in sum, the Village Green project failed to follow any of these guidelines. So it makes no sense to reward this project for ignoring our local comprehensive plans. As you're aware by now, our local town councilor, Ann Kennedy, and the vast majority of, if not all, local residents strongly oppose the size and design of this project. For we in the community were never given a voice in its planning. From the outset, we were told that this was a done deal, worked by town management and the developer. Local residents never had any input. How would you feel if such a project were to occur in your neighborhood? And remember, if it can happen to us in our community, it can happen to you in your community. I therefore urge you to please vote with Ann Kennedy and reject this grant for this ill-conceived project. Thanks for your time.
On another matter that was brought up, the Village Green, we are going to have that coming before us later, so I reserve most of my comments for that time. But I do want to refute a couple things that were said. One, the allegation that it was properly vetted. Some of us feel that yes, there was public hearings, planning, zoning board of appeals, CPA, etc. But I have to tell you that I got a message on my answering machine the day I was elected in 2003 from a prominent politician who said, "Don't bother fighting Village Green. It's a done deal. Don't even go there." So that's been the perception that I have had and others have had since that time. Also, the Barnstable Fire Department and the Barnstable Water Department were invited late into the planning process, and as a matter of fact, for the fire department at least, I know that the plans were already completed for the layout and of the complex, and all the fire department suggestions were exactly that, suggestions. They were not incorporated necessarily into the plans. It was up to the builder whether or not he wanted to incorporate them, in contrast to, for instance, the senior residence that's being planned, where the planning, where the fire department and the water department were invited early into the process and were able to put their input in, and those suggestions were incorporated into the design. As for the numbers, yes, the numbers of the units have been reduced from 310 down to 136, and then up again to 148, because the developer at that point came and said he could not make the numbers work with the 136 units. Also, during the process, at one point, a 40R was proposed by a member of this council that would further increase the density, again, to make this more affordable for the developer. And lastly, the remark about classism and elitism, I have to say that that really does trivialize the legitimate concern of a lot of residents in Comaquid especially. They have had and expressed legitimate concerns of safety, appearance, and impact. I know that very recently the Prudential Committee in our village raised our district taxes 22 cents per thousand, largely because of this project and the other project going into the industrial park and the impacts that are anticipated for those projects. So I think to call the people that come before us with legitimate concerns elitists is not a fair remark.
Appropriation for community housing improvements, ordered that pursuant to the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, the sum of $250,000 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation Housing Funds in the Community Preservation Fund on June 21, 2007, under item 2007-162, and that the Town of Barnstable Growth Management Department is authorized to contract for and expend the amount of $250,000 with the prior approval of the town manager for the development of 148 apartments, of which 40 units will be affordable rentals, and the remaining 108 will be market rate in 5 buildings located at 770 Independence Drive, Hyannis, Mass.
Seconded. We did a little research to be absolutely sure, but we did close the public hearing at our last meeting, or the last meeting where this is discussed. And so I'm now going to open it up for discussion with counselors. The answer, and I guess maybe you're the one to answer that question.
I'll try to answer it. Do I have to identify myself?
It would help.
Joseph
Yep.
Keller, Ostico. Mass Housing, were applied for the $1 million grant. And by the way, it's taken about a year of due diligence, applications, feasibility studies, a tremendous amount of time that my office has put into trying to secure these funds because they are very competitive. Mass Housing very much wants to help Cape Cod. Mass Housing realizes that Cape Cod desperately needs both affordable housing and just as much market rate rental housing. The Chamber of Commerce forum that was at the Cape Cod Hotel last fall, the main thing that came out of that whole economic summit was that we need affordable housing and market rate rental housing to keep young people here. So they very much would like to make this happen. They did all their due diligence. They looked at the site, they looked at the location, they looked at everything else, the sewer, the fact that sewer, they concluded that this was a very viable site. It's where rental people want to live. They want to live near service establishments, the mall, the highway. And frankly, we picked the site because we felt that in an industrial park it would have the least impact on neighborhoods. But Mass Housing wants to see some local support. They want to see support from not just me, they want to see support from the region. And, you know, frankly, if they don't see the support, they say, well, why should we use $1 million of taxpayers' money in an area that doesn't even want it? And I feel the same way. I mean, if
Right.
this council doesn't want it, then...
What we need to know is what happens if you don't.
Well, if this doesn't
Secure
happen, then
funding.
Mass Housing will probably conclude that there isn't enough local support for it, so they'll be happy to...
What happens if you don't secure the $1 million?
Oh, then I can't do it. I can't do it. Mr. Monifo, to answer your question, when I applied to Mass Housing, the project had to conform to their standards.
Right.
So I had to hire a whole new architect, change all the plans to make it a whole lot better. I had to increase the size of units. I had to put all energy efficient appliances, windows. I had to put 2 full baths in every 2-bedroom unit. I mean, tremendous cost. The cost of the change is $1.4 million, and I'm only getting $1 million from them. So, but the net result is this will be a much higher quality project than some people think, and it will attract a higher clientele.
Okay. Okay.